In this video, we'll be taking up the homework on solving rational equations and rational inequalities. So for the first question, there's not really much to say, but for all four examples, you're solving a rational equation, and the very first step would be to multiply both sides by the lowest common denominator, because that will allow you to convert the rational equation into a polynomial equation. And you should be really good at polynomial equations, so I won't get into that. The other extra step that you have to take is just checking your root, checking your solution to the equation, because with rational equations you may have restrictions. Okay, now for all four of these examples you do have restrictions, so once you solve the rational equation you should check whether your solution is acceptable, because if it matches up with the restriction for the rational equation, then you cannot accept the solution. It's an extraneous root. But none of these you have to reject, so we're all good. Question 2, you basically you're solving for rational inequalities. If it's not set equal to 0, you have to set equal to 0, and then you simplify. Solve for the zeros and where it's undefined to create your number line. And once you have the number line, you can answer the question. You can solve the inequality. Okay, so really that was the same approach for all four questions in number 2. I would argue actually 2C and 2C is actually the easiest. It was already set equal to 0. It's all factored for you. Yeah, it was as easy as it gets. 2D is pretty straightforward too. 2A and B is actually the most work. So for 2B, watch out to simplify. If students are going to make mistakes in this question, it's actually not the number line. The students get really good at the number line. It's the algebra from grade 10 and grade 11 that really gets you. Okay, so practice the algebra, because we are probably not going to set it equal to 0 for you if it's on a quiz or a test. Okay, so there's 2D. So for question 3, more rational equations, I'd argue number 3 is very similar to number 1. So there are solutions for 3. Not much to say. Okay, there's 3. Alright, so now for question 4, you're solving some inequalities. Yep, my approach number 4 is pretty much exactly the same as number 2. Yep. Unfortunately, for all the inequalities in this homework sheet, it was bland, because if you look at the number line, it was always an alternating of signs. It was plus minus, plus minus, plus minus, or minus, plus minus, plus minus, plus minus, plus, because none of the factors were being squared, or none of the factors had an even exponent being applied to it. So it was always a changing of signs as you pass the value where it's undefined, or you pass the value where it's equal to 0. Okay. Question 5 was a word problem. For 5a, you're basically solving an equation, and for 5b, you're just analyzing the end behavior of the rational function. Not much to say. Yeah. I know 5b looks a little weird, but it's really linear over linear, so that you can tell what the horizontal asymptote is if it's linear over linear. Okay, last one, question 6. That's a very common test question, number 6. So basically you want to solve for a and b, you find the lowest common denominator, and then you create some identities. So the x coefficients has to be equal to 13, and the constant term has to simplify to 1. So using those two facts, you can build a linear system. I chose to solve it by elimination, but you can solve it by substitution if you wanted to. Yep, so that's the practice on solving rational equations and rational inequalities.